Gypsy Rose Blanchard is free, and that's to the excitement of most people. If you watch the documentary about Gypsy Rose, if you watch the mini series, if you will, on Hulu, you'll walk away from that with a feeling of, my God, this girl went through hell, and she certainly did. But at the same point, she also orchestrated the murder of her mother by her own admission and brought another individual in to help make that happen. Another individual who is spending the rest of his life behind bars. Well, Gypsy Rose is now set free. Here to discuss
Yep.
this case and the weirdness of it and all the intricacies. And I got a lot of questions about what can be done, can't be done, is being done, should be done, shouldn't be done. Bob Motta, defense attorney, host of the podcast Defense Diaries, here to answer that. The first thing, and I'm not against Gypsy Rose being free. I'm not for Gypsy. I'm just kind of like in the middle. It's just there's I think a lot of valid arguments both ways. This is someone who was clearly abused beyond anyone's wildest imaginations or I think comprehension, because I don't think any of us can understand what this woman went through at the hands of her mother. But again, at the same point, we are talking about someone who did orchestrate a murder, and now she's getting a nice little payday out of this, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's good. Maybe this is what her life will be, telling her story, and maybe it will do some good for others out there. In cases like that, I have no issue. But there are son of Sam laws out there that do prevent people who have been convicted of a murder or crime like this from profiting off of the crime that they committed. So the first thing that came to mind, just kind of playing devil's advocate, is can she be doing all of this and making money on it? Is her story, but again, it's a crime she was certainly a major part in.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, but yeah, I think ultimately she can make money off of it.
Hmm.
I mean, you're talking about the Son of Sam laws, but I mean, she served the time.
Yeah.
And remember, this was a plea agreement.
Hmm.
So people are acting like I think people are forgetting that the state offered her this plea, a 10-year plea, where she was to do 85% of it, and she did her time.
Yeah.
I mean, like to me, um and obviously I'm a defense attorney. My father represented a young girl back in the late 90s whose father was incredibly abusive to both her mother, constantly beating her, constantly threatening her life, and to her. I mean, the house was like a house of horrors, like constantly. Like it was like, he'd get drunk and he'd beat the hell out of the mom. And one night, my dad's client was falling asleep, and they were having the mother and father were having a massive argument downstairs per usual, and and her father was screaming, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you. So she like falls asleep and then wakes up in kind of like a fugue state, proceeds to go downstairs with her father sleeping on the couch, and proceeds to cave his head in with a baseball bat, kills him.
Hmm.
And in that case, it was similar to this, in the sense that my father obviously had her evaluated psychologically by multiple doctors. They all came in with their opinions, and it never had to go to trial because the state, much like in this case, realized that there's extenuating circumstances wherein maybe her actions were justified.
Hmm.
And it's in the same vein because it's not in the heat of the moment. It's not self-defense per se, but, ultimately what they did what they call a cold plea in that case. And the little girl's name was Jennifer Van Noonan. I'm actually gonna cover that, on my podcast because it's an important story. But so ultimately what ended up happening is the state came and said, "All right, we're willing to, make an offer of probation where she does no jail time." That she pleads guilty to the act, but we don't think that she deserves to go to prison,
Hmm.
And ultimately, the judge, as always, has to agree with the plea. It has to be approved by the judge when the state and the defense come up with a plea agreement. And the judge did. And he went even beyond that. It's like kind of like in this area, it's a kind of famous saying. And like this judge on the bench said, look, I think the moral of the story is if you mess with your kids long and hard enough, they just might cave your head in with a bat.
Hmm.
And I think that there's some truth to that. What this woman did to her kid, for whatever reason, from the time that she was born throughout the course of her entire life, like you said, it is beyond. Like, yeah, I watched the act,
Hmm.
and it's like as crazy as you think it is, like watching that or watching the documentary, actually try to put yourself in the situation, for 14, 15, 16 years with this woman, like performing surgeries, like everything that she did was like beyond anything that I've ever seen. Munchausen by proxy, fine.
Yeah.
This went way beyond that. Like
Yeah.
shaving her head, telling this kid she had leukemia and was dying.
It's
Look,
insane. I mean,
like
yeah, it's evil. It's utterly evil. It's utterly insane. One of the bigger questions, I think a lot of us have about the case is how did this get into the medical system where they actually were
dude.
able to perform these invasive surgeries simply at the request of a mother? I think that's one of the scariest things about the whole
It's
thing is that
unbelievable.
just by suggestion or just by pushing, just by pressure. I mean, and we're not talking. This is not like the Maya Kowalski case where they went to Mexico to some third world doctor and we're doing some. This is the Mercy medical system. It's I live in this part of the country. Springfield's an hour away. I know where this hospital is. I've driven by it many a times. It's a very well established, very well respected medical center. It's actually where they have them here. I use that system, and it's scary to
Yeah.
think that was able to take place, and without a whole lot of repercussions at the end of the day either.
Man, it's terrifying. It really is, but like I hate doctors for a reason, not personally.
Yeah,
I hate the practice of medicine because it's exactly that. It's practice. Like they know what they can know. And the fact of the matter is that you're like any profession, Tony, you're going to have bad doctors
sure.
and you're gonna have bad lawyers and you're gonna have bad cops and you're gonna have bad teachers. When you get into the profession of like medicine and you have a bad doctor, it can result in death, so it's a different type of thing. It's like the concept that somehow she was able to hoodwink doctors into performing actual invasive surgery, like removing nodes, lymph nodes, or
Yeah,
like her glands, or like, I mean, it was crazy.
yeah.
I mean, like, and she just repeatedly kept going in there. And I mean, like, is it an indictment on the practice of medicine and in general, in terms of that they're just guessing a lot of times? I mean, that's the fact. Like, there does not exist any kind of tests. Like, when they do blood work, I mean, obviously, it's gotten much more advanced. Like is every year that progresses, the ability to be able to determine what's wrong with somebody has gotten better and better and better. However, they're still guessing to some extent. I mean, obviously, there's things where you're going to be showing symptoms and they're going to be able to say, okay, yeah, we agree that this is what it is. But I mean, people go and get second and third opinions for a reason
Mhm.
because it's not like a factual scenario. You know what I mean? If you have stage 4 cancer and it's observable, then that's one thing. But if you're showing symptoms that you're pulling up Merck's manual or whatever you're looking at, and you're like, all right, well, this could be this or this or this. You know what I'm saying? Where the blood work's not going to say, like, doesn't print out a little receipt, say, okay, this is what you have. It's like they're trying to narrow it down. to 4, 5, 6 different afflictions. And what about like new stuff that popped up? Like we're like there's always new diseases that somehow like arise. I don't know. It's
Mhm.
probably all from our surroundings in terms of all the radiation that we're walking through constantly with our cell phones and all the beams that we walk through every day, all of us, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, that part of it is crazy to me too.
It
Like the concept of
yeah.
how she was able to get people to actually perform surgery.
Yeah.
Is it money driven?
Well, I
Is
mean,
that what it
and there
is?
was a lot of doctor shopping. It seemed every time it came up that there was a red flag raised, Dee Dee, her mother, would move on to another doctor, and until
Right.
she basically got what she wanted. And I suppose that's true with almost anything. Scary the fact that it happens in medicine. That if you keep digging, you may find what you're looking for. Hey, it's Tony Brueski. If you like the podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and press that bell so you don't miss any of our updates on the cases we're following for you right here at the Hidden Killers podcast from True Crime Today. And thanks